Great defeaters, new and old. Welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, and Tony, the pugilist boy who's not pugilising too much right about now. But we are the children of the game. Thank you very much for being in attendance. Going to be a very interesting evening. It always is. Tony, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you very much, sir. Yeah, it's been an interesting last week of holiday, so to speak. It's been busy though. It's been busy, so I am a bit mad rushed doing things. Went to the theatre last night. Was out on Sunday. Just a whole bunch of events are happening for me, and as you probably are aware, I was out with Ace last week. There was Carnival. It's just been busy time, and I'm pleased to say, out of all that, I'm in good fettle. How are you, brother?
Yeah, I can't complain, man. Things are okay. Had a little time with family on the weekend, little barbecue situation. As you saw earlier, I was watching my nice little WWE watch boxing Friday, watch boxing Saturday, managed to just about watch some boxing today. Yeah, I've got a lot to talk about. So I guess without further ado, let me greet the people in the chat, and then we can get started. So first and foremost, man like Philip Answer, number one in the building, throwing his ones up for the bloodline. I see you, Philip. Untraceable in the building as well. Shout out to you. Mulla as well. Star Fox WR45E. Shout out to you. North Bank Bren in the building as always. Bigsy Biggs is here as well. I think that's everyone who's commenting in the chat at the moment. It's weird. The number was a lot lower a moment ago. And man like Joe Blackman in the building. Shout out to you, Joe. I won't. We'll stick with Joe. Salute to you, big man. Bless up. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the time being. So, oh no, Jonah31 just jumped in chat as well, so I have to show manners and respect to a man like Jonah. All right. So while Tony is just loading up some last little bits of footage, I just want to talk to everyone about the. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen the OTX card that took place on Friday, or if anyone's seen any of the fights from it. But the Brandon Adams versus Juan Francisco Veron, which I believe is the guy's name. That was a really fun fight. Brandon Adams pretty much came out as a pressure fighter in that fight, which was weird. I've never seen him in that pressure stance before. But you're muted if you want to talk. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it was a fight whereby I was expecting. I thought that Veron would basically get it, sort of either take it being the younger, fresher guy. Brandon Adams always kind of being the perennial contender, but never really doing anything of note. But I've got to be honest, he actually impressed me quite a bit in that fight. Like just that sustained pressure. Veron has got a chin on him. And he's clearly, there was always a thing where they would say the Argentinian fighters had great chins but had soft bodies. But Veron managed to, he managed to prove that he's got a solid stomach, and he's got a solid chin, because he took some nasty shots in that fight. Didn't go down. Yeah, he held on a couple of times, but he still tried to trade back. It was a really good showing from Brandon Adams, especially from sort of like the fourth round on. It was a competitive fight, but I definitely feel like he I definitely feel as if he rightfully won, even though I predicted that it would actually be Veron that would get the victory. So yeah, shout out to him. Real quick in the building, Jam Down 187. Shout out to you. Thank you very much for making it on time today. I know you usually watch the playbacks, but I appreciate you being here. Dan the Man, SC15, hardest working guy on Twitex in the building, and so is Tyler MF Durden as well. Shout out. Um, Bigsy Biggs, did you guys like Elijah Pierce's performance the other day? I don't think he's ready for a new way though. I don't like that fight. No, Elijah Pierce he'll get knocked out cold by a new way because he's been knocked down by lesser punchers, and it's because he defensively he lapses in concentration, especially when he thinks he's going for a finish, or sometimes when he's getting a bit too cocky. So his basically his he's got to tighten up on his defense quite considerably before he thinks of stepping in there with any of the top guys at 122. MJ will take him. Sam Goodman would probably outbox him at this point. I reckon even TJ Dehenny would have a very good chance against him. He's he's not he's not ready for that level yet, but the OTX platform that he's on, he's a star over there right now. And I think it's just stay over there, keep building little by little. He's young enough. He doesn't need to rush into any of these bigger fights, not for right now. But speaking of Elijah Pierce, him versus Jose San Martin. Now, San Martin, I remember when he gave Shabazz Masood, was it Shabazz Masood? Yeah, Shabazz Masood. He gave him hell on that matchroom card to the point where, as far as I'm concerned, I actually think he won that fight. I don't know how Shabazz actually got the decision, but he did. So I knew it was gonna be like a tough fight for Pierce. But to be honest, he actually did very well in the start of the fight. But then San Martin just basically grinded it out, went through the gears right at the end of the fight, just made it a very busy and uncomfortable night. Even though it didn't really like he was throwing shots that were really hurting Elijah Pierce that much. It looked like it was giving him enough to think about, but he's pressing the action. Because he's pressing the action, that ultimately means that, on the scorecards, you still got to give him consideration. You still got to say that he's probably winning those rounds through activity, aggression, and at times he was outlanding Pierce as well. But they had some good exchanges. I thought it was a really fun sort of fight to watch. I was watching it earlier on today actually, just to sort of finish off the card. So yeah, it was a really fun event, which led nicely into Saturday night's boxing. Yeah, pretty much that's kind of sort of my thoughts on that. I don't think Tony saw any of that, and there were some other fights on the undercard, but those were the only two that I really took notice of. There was one other one. I need to get the name of the guy. Give me a second. Uh, what's the other card called? Elijah Pierce. Let's see. So on the wait, what happened there? Oh, phone's playing up. It was Andreas Katsarakis against Robert Terry. That fight. It was Robert the Tiger Terry versus Andreas the Katsarakis. It was a split decision. That was actually a very good fight. Very fun, very entertaining. It was another, OTX put on good cards. A bit like Pro Box. A lot of the fights that you see on there, they're very much 50-50-ish or proper step up fights. There's never really any keep busies or prospect against journeyman. Like they have their people in a specific section where maybe they're at that level where they just need an opportunity, or they're maybe like a former challenger that's trying to get back into position, and they match them accordingly. So you will frequently find very fun low key fights on those um, on those particular cards. But yeah, that's sort of pretty much that. So we'll move into the card that took place in Los Angeles via Matchroom. Tony, I'm gonna let you start this one off. I just need to go grab something from next door. So yeah, take it away.
Cool. Okay, so we go over to the card, which was headlined. It was taking place at the outdoor arena, the stadium for the LA Galaxy, the Dignity Health Sports Complex in Los Angeles. Obviously, as I said, headlined by Diego Pacheco, defending his title. So let's start with lower down on the card. We're only going to talk about 3 fights in general here. But essentially, we'll start off with Chev Clark. It was, I think it was the second fight on the night. Chev obviously shipped out by Matchroom to go over and be part of this this show. Not getting a call up for anything big in Riyadh or any part of the Riyadh season programs that are taking place starting next month and the month following. So he just kind of had a tick-over fight, but he had a fight against a very capable opponent in Efe Torbo Apochi. Apochi is a Nigerian who resides in Houston, Texas. He came into the fight with a 12-3 record, but all 12 of his wins were by knockout. None of his 3 losses were by knockout, but obviously very impressive. Unfortunately, though, the 2 losses took place, the 2 out of the 3, 2 losses up until he fought Chev. The 2 losses were against Brandon Glanton and Adrian Taylor in 2 out of his 3 previous fights. So previous to Chev Clark, he had won his previous fight, a KO, a 5th round KO to Lucas Ponta de Silva, and then 2 losses prior by split decision, an 8-rounder and a 10-rounder. Now, I've got no footage, little bit of picturage, but that literally is it. Let me give you the breakdown. Essentially, these guys, as you see, the WBA Intercontinental Cruiserweight title was on the go. Fairly cordial in their build up, but it was a very entertaining fight. As I said, I haven't got very much by way of pictures or, in fact, no video content whatsoever. But essentially, Chev was, tested. He was tested by Apochi. Apochi, as I said, with 12 knockouts in his 12 wins, was there to try and take out Chev's 8-0 record, or was it 9-0 when he went into this fight? And he gave everything in order to try and get that knockout. You could see that he was a heavy-handed fella. He was very capable in his attacks, in his salvos. Chev was very careful about his work, going, trying to utilize his jab. I'd like to see more jab going forward from Chev. But essentially, he used good boxing skills to win this fight. He loaded up when he needed to, but he didn't go overboard in any round and try and, overdo his work. I kind of felt like he was being very strategic in his work and not going full out for the knockout. In terms of scoring, the scores were 96-94 to Chev, 97-93 to Chev. Sorry, 97-93 to Chev, 98-92 to Chev, and Judge Jerry Cantu scored it as a draw, 95-95. So, split decision, majority decision win for Chev Clark. I had him winning comfortably. I think, I would have given Apochi, three rounds at most, maybe four in a split. But yeah, it was a defining win for Chev. Very, very professional in the way he dealt with the work. But as I said, there were points in the fight where Apochi definitely put Chev in trouble, and I think it was round 9 where he hurt Chev, and it looked like Chev was struggling to regain his composure, and even into the 10th round, it looked like Apochi was going all out to get the stoppage, knowing that he had hurt Chev, and Chev at that point in time looked like he was just saying, "Look, I'm not getting into a war with this guy. I'm just going to see this round out and win it on points." And as I said, it ended up being not the most comfortable of wins, but a good win for Chev. Base, what were your thoughts?
So, Tony's messing with my screen a bit here.
Sorry, buddy.
There we
Get
go.
back to where you belong.
Quite right. So, yeah, look, this was a very, very interesting fight from the start, to be totally honest. You've got two pressure fighters, and normally when you have two pressure fighters in the ring, you either get what is just a literal in the middle of the ring slugfest, or someone has to capitulate and has to change their tactics in order to either gain an advantage or to stop themselves from being knocked out. That someone in this fight was Chev Clark, because I think he could tell from early on, I can stand and trade with him, but I'm playing into the only game plan he has, which is to push forward and to continuously throw shots. Whereas I've got a bit more nuance about my game. I like to throw from angles. I prefer to throw the combinations, but I also like to do that at my own pace. And if I stay in front of this guy, I'm going to have to shoot shots consistently for 3 minutes of every round, which is only going to tire me out. To me, that's what it kind of looked like his thought process was, because we saw very early on, I think from round 2 onwards, when he sort of realized that he couldn't back Apoche up, or not back him up sufficiently, that he started to use more on the outside. He would move a bit more. He wouldn't necessarily just stay straight in the pocket, head on and trade. He would try to get to the side, throw angles, step off, try to take a break and take a rest before kind of going back in for a next attack. And it was sort of rinse and repeat. But he was landing the better shots, and he was landing the more consistent shots, because Apoche, even though he was very workmanlike in his abilities, it was a bit slow and a bit ponderous at times. And Chev just had a little bit of speed advantage. Now, the whole fight itself changed in the 8th round, when it had been competitive, but Chev Clark had pretty much outlanded Apoche, I think, in about 7 of those 8 rounds, and seemed like he was pretty much on a domination. But in the 8th round, Chev caught him with a very, very big overhand right, after catching him with it was a left hook setup, and then the overhand right sort of came after it, and it took Apache's legs away. But Apache managed to stay on his feet and managed to actually compose himself quite well. Chev Clark basically went for broke, went to unload the tank, empty the tank, the same as Anthony Yard did against Kovalev, and then you saw at the end of the round, he was visibly tired, um, to the point where it was he stopped throwing punches like at all. Um, he had definitely just he had expended all of his energy at that particular point in time, and so from there you saw round 9 come into it, and at this point you've got Apochi who is still like, he's recovered, and even though he's not he's just now at this point applying pressure. He's just applying pressure, and he's managing to sort of get some shots off, Shev's moving about, he's trying to throw the jab, he's trying to throw a couple shots here and there, but he kept making the same cardinal sin. He kept dipping down to his right hand side, and he kept doing it the exact same way, until one point he gets caught in between a barrage of a combo by Apache, where Apache manages to catch him, sort of on the top of the head. It was sort of to the side, to the top, but like right here, takes Shev's equilibrium. He's now struggling, holding on, like his legs look like they're about to give out, but he just about manages to survive the rest of the round. But you can tell that that's taken a lot out of him. And then in the last round, they say you just gotta walk. You basically just box him this round. Just keep your distance, stay away, keep your distance. And he had to fight Apache off in every single moment and every single facet at that particular point, because Apache just wasn't ready to be denied, at that particular moment. But luckily, Chev got through the round, even though there was a little bit of another slight mini crisis that was about to take place. But he managed to get through the round, and he got the scorecards as Tony said: 95, 95, 97, 93, 98, 92. Now, personally, I think the 95-95 card was a lot more realistic of what realistic representation of this fight than the 98-92 card was. That being said, 97-93 I thought was a fair reflection. 96-94 also to me would have been. 95-95 was generous, but I can understand maybe from a certain angle in the other side of the ring, it may look as if Apochi was doing a bit better than maybe he actually was, except for obviously those last couple of rounds where he was quite clearly in the ascendancy. The fight would have been very, very interesting if it was a 12-rounder, because Apochi's energy never waned. Even when he was hurt, he still come back, he still relaxed, whereas Chev Clark definitely looked like he was struggling after the 8th, specifically when that barrage came in. But even before then, it looked like he was trying to manage the tank. So he's gonna have to get himself up to 12 round fitness. Otherwise, it could be a couple long nights for him in the future. But it was a very good, it was a very good victory, and I feel like it's a victory that's probably going to age well, and it's a victory that is going to teach him a lot about himself and his abilities and where he can actually reach, and maybe where his ceiling is. So I'm keen to see what kind of happens with him moving forward.
And I'd like to add to that, the thing that I was most proud of, Chev, about this one was going out to the States and fighting, because, we see a lot of our domestic guys staying in-house. Some of them are training out there, but they're fighting home and they're staying home. They ain't seen a ring outside of the UK in years. And so sometimes, you need to throw yourself out there and test the waters and make it known that, what, I can go overseas and I can fight. We've seen Terence Crawford fight here in the UK. We've seen Lomachenko fight here in the UK. We've seen Usyk fight here in the UK. Them men are comfortable going and fighting around the world in the build-up to becoming great fighters. And that's a lesson that, if you want to be a great, you can't do it all on home turf. We saw Anthony Joshua, his first time fighting overseas, didn't go so well. So along the way, if you can get an overseas fight and see what is different and the temperature, fighting outside in heat, and get that on your resume, because that will help down the line. I've now got that 10 rounder in my bank, in my memory banks. I know how I struggled towards the end.
All good. Quickly, just before we carry on, shout out to Alexander the Great, Mr. Alexander Sankey in the building. Thank you for being here, and congrats on the new job. I did see on Monday Night Smoke yesterday you got a new job, so shout out to you. And shout out to SA1 Boxer Size. That's why it's called a world title. Yes, very true.
Yeah,
You
big up
must be willing
Sarge.
to defend in the world.
Nice to see Sarge in the house. Sarge, my boy.
Okay, right. So, very briefly, before we go to the main event of that card, I just want to talk really quickly about Aleda Ruiz and Ginny Fuchs, which was a very, very fun fight. Pretty much it was a phone booth fight for the majority of it. Ginny Fuchs was the quicker of the two, southpaw. Aleda Ruiz, orthodox. Both sort of threw punches in bunches, but Ginny has more skills than Aleda Ruiz normally, but she decided to sort of stick on the inside and try to fight fire with fire. I think it was a case of not wanting to be overshown on the cards, especially with it being in the Leda Ruiz's neck of the woods. So she stayed in the pocket a bit too long at times, traded when she didn't need to trade. That being said, it was a very comprehensive. Actually, no, it was a good victory. I wouldn't say it was comprehensive, but I don't think the split decision was warranted. Funny
That
enough,
was
because
some crazy scoring base. That was mad.
I was just about to get to that. Yo, I predicted it would be a split decision. I actually went Aleda Ruiz's way purely because I felt it was on our home turf and because she's a busy action puncher normally, that she may get consideration for that. And as I said, Ginny Fuchs, she actually played into her hands by not boxing and moving and not sticking to the outside like she can do, and actually getting stuck in. But yeah, the free scorecard, you had one, which was 100 to 90 for Ginny Fuchs. Then you had 97, 93 to Aleda Ruiz. And then you had 97, 93 to Ginny Fuchs. Now, the 97, 93s either way, I can kind of understand it. While I do think that Ginny did...
That's a massive swing base.
Well, yeah, but obviously there's 4 swing rounds. If you saw... Did you watch the fight?
Okay. No.
Okay, if you watch the fight, every round it was like both of them was basically throwing 30 and 40 punches at each other, hitting like 17 to 18 of them each kind of thing. It was one of those type of fights where one moment you might see 1 minute you might see it land from this angle, but on the other angle you'll see it was the other person's shot that you saw. It was just one of those type of fights. Now Ginny Fuchs did the better work overall, but Aleda was like she was in every single round. So I can see how someone would want to give her the consideration again, as I said, being in her hometown and everything, which is why I thought it would go as a split. Now there was 4 swing rounds according to the judges that they couldn't decide. The only scorecard that I don't agree with is the 100 to 90 card, because even though I do think Ginny Fuchs won the fight personally, you can't say that she won every single round. There was rounds where she clearly did get outworked or outlanded. So yeah, but it was an entertaining fight to watch. It was a good opener to the card. And as you saw from that picture that Tony put up, Ginny Fuchs she broke her thumb, and the bone actually was protruding out the top of the thumb. I don't know how she managed to do that, but yeah, it's a very nasty injury. Mate.
That is one of the most freakiest injuries I have ever seen. I mean, you just don't see that ever in boxing.
Yeah.
And that happened in round 1.
And she still carried on throwing the shot. So that just kind of shows you what she was, the kind of heart that she had. Or maybe she didn't even realize it was that bad until obviously she took the glove off. But when the championship's on the line, sometimes that's just how you got to be. And she went through hell for it. She's the interim champ now at 115. So yeah, shout out to her.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting just reading the bio of this fight because Ginny Fuchs came into this with 3 fights. She'd obviously had a very, very extensive amateur career, over 100 amateur fights, won 87 of them. And she was fighting a girl 16-1, or 16-0-1 draw.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, for me, I was like, how did she get the fight in the first place? Obviously, she's got a very good pedigree in the game. But yeah, I could understand why you would make Adelaida the favorite. And I didn't see the whole fight, but the highlights I did see, it looked an interesting fight, very interesting stylistically. You could see, to me, from what I saw, that Ginny Fuchs is a much more comfortable boxer. She looked more comfortable in the way she moves around. Her punches come out at better angles. She throwed better punches from long distance than Adelaida. Adelaida seemed to want to get in close and throw medium to short range shots, whereas Ginny was using good approach work and sticking and moving before unleashing on the inside with her barrages of punches. So just from the small samples of what I saw, Ginny Fuchs clearly has a better pedigree by way of boxing style than Adelaida. But yeah, good fight from what I saw.
All good. Right, okay.
Philip Answer had that was as 95.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. It's like I said, it's one of those fights. The 4-round swing was not it was not an exaggeration. You could legit see a 4-round swing in there, but I think just the overall better work from Ginny Fuchs kind of won through. To be totally honest. With that being said, look, let's move to the main event of that card. Because I can't. The other 2 fights that was on there weren't necessarily anything of note that I can remember. But look, talk to us about this main event, Tony.
Yeah, so we had Diego Pacheco, the super middleweight sensation, defending his WBC USA super middle title and the WBO international super middleweight title, up against Magia Sulecki, 32-2-0 against 21-0. And yeah, it was an exciting fight from the get-go. Both fighters came out. Pacheco, as we know, a very high volume worker. He got into his groove very early on into this fight and essentially was, using his length advantage, his speed advantage, his youth advantage to basically beat Sulecki handily in most rounds. I had him winning pretty much all 5 of the previous rounds before round 6, when the shot that you just saw missed to the right and then the hook to the body just decapitated Magia Sulecki. Good work from Pacheco. Eddie Hearn clearly has, high hopes, having him headlining in LA, where he's from. He's clearly highly invested in Diego Pacheco, in a division that has some very good champions. So it will be interesting to see where he go next. I didn't hear any of the post-match chat from Eddie, but I'm pretty certain he's now going to be mentioned amongst all the contenders at super middle now. Not that he hasn't been mentioned before, but it's probably time now to say, step up again and let's look at a world title?
No, well, Eddie said that he'll likely be mandated by the WBO in the next 6 to 12 months. Personally, he's not ready for world title contention yet. If he jumps in for a world title, he skips steps. There's a few other additional steps he needs to take before he's ready to fight, like a Canelo or I guess a William Skull or whoever else may be at that title, Edgar Berlanga, well, maybe not Edgar Berlanga, or like a Caleb Plant. He needs to have some of those fights against the other ranked contenders. He hasn't had any of those yet. And he needs probably one or two of those. So realistically, if they're going to take 12 months before they maybe call him as a mandatory, bearing in mind he's only 23, like it's not, he's in no rush. He needs to get in. If I would try to do 3 fights before he fights for a world title, just to, round out his game, fully decide if he actually needs to change trainers or not, or whether Jose Benavidez Sr. is the person he believes will take him to the top. I disagree. But yeah, he did well yesterday. I mean, on Saturday night. So yeah, look, keep building. Don't skip the steps like like what Belanga's done, and even to a lesser extent what Jaime Munguia did. But that's the way you need to go. And if he does all of that, he'll definitely have contentions to be a champ. Although I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to make 168. Even though he is still young, you can tell that he's a big guy, and he may not want to necessarily move to 175 because Benavidez is up there now, and they're trained by the same person, but they were both in 168 division together and didn't have to face each other. So it may be a case of needs must. Although I would prefer for him to change trainer and probably move up if he can't get the shot sort of within the next 2 years. But no, in terms of the fight, look, he used his range, he used all of his natural advantages to perfect aplomb throughout the fight, and the body shot was a crippling shot. So Lechki's never been knocked out before, so to get him like that, even though he's older now, still an achievement. Pacheco's got the ingredients, but like any good food, any good cake, if you rush it, it don't come out correct. So you have to take the time in the oven, bake it correctly, and wait your turn. And that would be my my sort of thoughts on that, and that's what I would feel.
Cool. I would say, I mean, looking at the body of Pacheco at weigh-in, he doesn't look like he's having any trouble making 168. I look at his body, and I've got that picture up on my screen here of the weigh-in, and he can lose a few pounds. So he's got developmental capabilities to build on what he's got without draining down. So I think 168 is probably the perfect weight for him. He looks comfortable at the weight.
Tony, can I just ask, why that was on your screen?
Because I had put all of those pictures in those slides that I do. So if you looked at the original picture, you would have seen I utilized my phone to create those slideshows.
So it wasn't just about Mandem with the top off at the weigh-ins, yeah?
No. You would try to go there. Look. You would try to go there. Outrageous. I'm gonna have to give this guy needs a red card, man. He's out of order. People, come defend me. This guy. Oh dear. What's he like?
All right. So, okay.
It's always jokes.
So with that, look, actually, one fight we do. I should actually talk about very briefly before we move on to obviously the stuff that happened earlier on with Inoue. Um, Eduardo Sugar Nunes against Manuel Mariaga. Look, Nunes is basically the heir apparent of the what division is that? That's 100 and I think it's 130. Is it 100? Yeah, I think it's 100 and or is it one? Oh, let me double check because I think it's the 130-pound division. Um, Eduardo Nunes.
Super feather.
Super feather.
130.
Yeah, 130. That's what I thought. Yeah. He's gonna be a problem for all of the 130s, to be totally honest. Um, the only one who I actually think has got the skills to be able to basically keep him away and actually win and actually sort of be able to outbox him is Oshaki Foster. I do think he will get his belt back from Conceição because he definitely didn't lose that fight. So in the rematch, I expect him to get his belt back. Sugar Nunes, I think he takes out Anthony Kakache as well. Kakache is a good move. Obviously, he ain't really got the. He showed power against Cordina, but I feel like that power was a bit of a deception. I don't think Cordina took the best did the best weight cut, and the punches after the bell definitely did affect him a little bit. But Nunes, look, 27-1, a controversial split decision lost in a 6-rounder early on in his career, but 28 victories, 28 KOs. So that tells you what he's on. And this fight, it was he knocked Mariaga out through the ropes. Mariaga got back in. I mean, he stayed on his feet, but his corner eventually called the doctor and called the ref and no, we need to stop this fight because he won't stay down. He's not going to stop. He sort of just took a beating throughout 6 rounds. Had some successes, but yeah, Sugar Nunes, he's definitely the heir apparent in my opinion, and it would be him and Rocky Hernandez. I think would be a great fight, personally. But yeah, that's sort of just wanted to throw that out there quick. Tony, I will let you talk about the bulk of the Japan card. I'll jump in on the Inoue part, but I haven't seen any of the undercard fights yet.
Okay, so before we go there, I want to mention a fight from not this week gone, but the weekend before on the undercard of Roy Jones versus John Gotti III. The kid Kamel Moton, who
You
was
mean Floyd
4-0.
Mayweather?
Sorry?
You mean Floyd Mayweather? You said Roy Jones.
Sorry, my friend. I'm getting punchy. Yeah, Floyd Mayweather versus John Gotti III. We saw Kamel going into his 5th pro fight, and it was to be nothing less than honest, stunning. First round knockout. That is how you take care of business. Now, yeah, of course, he's getting fed tin cans at the moment. Another Mexican cab driver. But, look, this kid with an amateur record of 61 wins with only 3 defeats, and now 5-0 with 4 KOs. He's clearly got something that we need to be tracking. So I know he's not fighting on big cards and but I'm going to start we have seen him on our show before, and like many of the prospects that we mentioned, he's one that we need to see, keep our eye on, basically. So yeah, for those who like a knockout, I'll show it again quickly because yeah, it's a thing of beauty. overhand right hook combination. Phew. And so short and decisive. It's lovely, just lovely. So anyway, that completes that bit of action. We go on to this morning's card from Tokyo, which was headlined by the monster Inoue. But on the undercard, I managed to see a few pieces. Starting off with Andy Hiroaki against Ismael Barroso. Now, we know Ismael Barroso, the guy who's still campaigning as a professional despite being 65 years old. I honestly believe he needs to hang the boots up now because Hiroaki basically dealt with him, you know, and he made him look, you know, the age he is. He dealt with him, stopped him, and it was impressive. Also on the undercard, the second to main event fight was Yoshiki Take, who we have seen before, up against Daigo Higa, in what was also a very entertaining brawl. Take is ultimately a very stylish boxer. He uses the ring a lot, but in this salvo that you could see here, Daigo had Take up against the rope and he was barreling in with the shots. Much of this fight took place with Take boxing, utilizing the ring. He's very uppercut happy, Take. You know, he likes to show his fighters lots of different looks and then pounce on them with the uppercut. And that's what he did through several parts of this fight. But he showed very good understanding of ring craftsmanship. He was able to dominate in several rounds. But as I said, you know, Hige was able to, at certain points in the fight, press the action and go for broke, because this was what he was looking for. He wanted to get Take on the ropes, and on this particular salvo, you see, you know, he's able to barrel in and use his you know, aggression to try and stop Take. But to Take's credit, he weathered the storm, and in fact, throughout the remaining rounds, the 11th and 12th especially, he was very dominant, and he himself looked like he might have even been able to take out Hige with combinations himself. Again, you know, that uppercut that Take fight throws with abandon, you know, was finding its target on a regular basis towards the end of the fight. And, you know, it was a majority decision, a unanimous decision for Take in what was a very entertaining fight. Did I say 65 years old? Yeah. I mean, I ain't joking. I'm 56. That brother looks older than me, Taras. Base?
I can't really comment on the undercard. I haven't managed to see any of it, but I will watch it after the event. So it's mainly the main events what we talk about.
Yeah, no problem. Star Fox mentions he's talking about here Kamel Moten looking like baby Tank Davis. Yeah, absolutely. He even looks, you know, physically and facially very similar to Tank. So yeah, guys and girls, that leads us on to the main event, which was the Monster Inoue fighting TJ Doheny. Yeah, Doheny got this because he's been fighting in Japan on a regular basis. I think he's won 4 fights in Japan, so he's obviously ingratiated himself to the Japanese audience. they know him. They've seen him fight there on several occasions, and obviously the arena was packed to capacity. It's a 15,000 seater arena that was full up, and the monster did what the monster does. Seeing very limited footage, but that's the very end of the fight. But essentially, the monster was he wasn't made to do anything outside of what we normally expect to see from him. He was able to take control of this fight. He was fighting a southpaw, so there was a lot of lancing, fencing work going on. I don't know why, but Doheny, he didn't have too much ambition through the early 3 rounds. He was literally putting himself in a position to throw punches, but then not throwing the punches. So as a result, the monster Inoue was able to just, glide his way nice and slowly into a situation where he was winning rounds without being overly aggressive, without taking any chances. I was doing a live commentary with Danny from Fight Fan TV this morning. And the thing that I mentioned straight from the get-go, look at the monster's footwork. He was doing superb, because what you could see was he was taking his left foot and working from the inside and moving the left foot from the inside of Doheny to the outside of his lead foot and then throwing his straight right. And he would catch him every time because it's so important about that footwork being in the right place. Obviously, as I said, there was that lancing battle between the two jabs, the southpaw against the orthodox that negate one another. But obviously, the antidote to that is if you get your foot in the right position, you come through and you use that backhand to effect. And during the early rounds, Doheny was just unable to do anything about getting out of the way of the backhand. But having said that, it wasn't like Inoue was going all out and, dominating this guy. He was just slowly ambling. It looked like, it almost looked like controlled sparring at points because Doheny just wouldn't engage. It wasn't until about the 4th round where he actually started to get a little bit more acclimatized to doing what he needed to do, and he started to throw hands. And it was at this point that he started to get in. What it seemed to me was Inoue was like, okay, I know this guy can throw big punches, so I'm just going to be careful about my work because obviously last time out he got knocked down in the 1st round by Luis Neri. Didn't want that to happen, so he was very careful about his work in the first set of rounds. And then from the 4th round onwards, he was like, okay, I've felt what he's got. I don't feel like it's going to hurt me. So he actually put himself in this position where he was close enough to take shots on his gloves and then fire back from it and counter Doheny's work. So that's what we saw from 4, 5, and 6, where effectively Inoue was able to use good approach work, use his footwork, create angles, but at the same time, he would get caught, but he knew what he was doing. He always looked like, I know what I'm doing. I'm willing to take that shot because when you throw that shot, I'm going to throw something in return that's going to hurt you even more. But as I said, we saw the ending of the fight. I'll show it again. It was very much a shock ending to this fight. Because it appears that Doheny might have had something wrong with him before he even went into this fight, because it's very unusual that your back goes and you haven't had some kind of previous. I'm a person, I've had sciatica in the past. I know how that feels, and if it should ever come back, boy, it's one of them injuries. If you got lower back pain, and it's something that has happened in the past. And it comes back, as soon as we saw this, all Danny and I were saying was, it's my back. Spinal. Mike Tyson. Yeah, so his back went. He couldn't carry on. whatever that injury is. I'm pretty certain it wasn't brought on wholly by the body shots of Inoue. Inoue was punishing him to the body, but to me that looks like something spinal where he may have had problems with his back previously, and that injury was recurrent. He did kind of indicate by noting that he at some point he stepped down and he felt a shooting pain go into his back. So yeah, that looks like to me a recurrent injury that came back to haunt him. Just reading Philip Answer's comment about it looked like he needed to go to the bathroom. But yeah, as North Bank Brent says, he didn't get out of third gear.
Look, he had some he did have some problems to overcome in those first couple of rounds. You can tell that he's not fully comfortable with southpaws, especially like back foot southpaws. I reckon he would more prefer someone that was like in his face and looking to lead off from that stance rather than actually him having to sort of be the aggressor. And every time he sort of was aggressive, even though he was defensively very sound, very, very good in this fight compared to a lot of his previous fights, you could tell that he was wary of certain shots that he could have seen himself getting caught with. And I think in those first few rounds, obviously he was trying to throw some big shots, but I think he was trying to get Dehaney to keep his hands low. He was trying to go to the body, knowing that Dehaney has previously been down to body shots, even though he's never been knocked out prior to that. So you saw, especially in those first couple of rounds, even when he would manage to get Dehaney towards the ropes, he would dig into that to the gut, and he was instantly just trying to, sort of trying to put that, like they say, just put the water in the basement. He was just trying to sort of flood him from early so that he could take him out later on in the fight. And he wasn't happy with the way the fight stopped. You could see, obviously, once he moved from first and second gear in sort of that third and fourth round, and when he went into that third gear, Dehaney just couldn't hang with him, and it was one of those, the writings on the wall. Dehaney would try to throw a counter every now and again, but he was just getting pieced up 3, 4, and 5 punches at a time. And yeah, it just was starting to look like one-way traffic until in the 6th round, when he started to take some really big shots to the solar plexus and to the stomach and to the sides. And there's a couple of times you even saw he got hit in the kidney at one point, on the hip a little bit, like just the top of the hip bone. Anyway, at that point, he was just in full control and full mode. He's like, I'm just going to do what I want to do right about now. And it was, yeah, it just, like I said, it was one-way traffic. The writing was on the wall. And then somehow, Inouye's either caught him in that nerve or he's made him step awkwardly and the whole back's gone. At the time, I couldn't tell if it was fully something in the lower back or if he looked like he might have like ruptured his Achilles the same way that David Hay did, because the way he was walking, it looked as if like the leg, the foot wasn't bending or anything. And then we saw him say, "Oh, it's my back, it's my back." He went down. Obviously, ref called it off, could no longer continue. I know some people say it looked like he spewed it a bit, like he just didn't want to be there, but you could tell that he had no way to defend himself at that point. Some people will say, well, you're supposed to, you're gonna have to give the other guy the honor of the knockout, especially like in Japan. I know they have certain rules and cultural understandings about certain things like that, but obviously TJ Dehaney isn't Japanese, and he doesn't abide by those same rules of engagement. And I don't blame him. If you can't move and you can't defend yourself at that point, like get out of there, and that's what he did. But I know Inoue was hopefully be onto bigger and better things. But yeah, I think 122 is it's not his ceiling. He can move up again, but 122 is the last of the weight classes where he will be great, because you can see, as you said, like the size difference between the two is crazy, and it's only due to Inouye's freakish power and his technique and his dedication and his craft, and not having to cut the extra weight that he's able to hang with guys that are so much clearly bigger. But this is a Lomachenko situation all over again. If he goes up to 126, he will get beat, and probably get beat by people that aren't on his level. And that's purely just because the size difference, the power will travel, but getting to the target is going to be a lot harder, because those guys are all going to be 3-4 inches taller than him. You're going to get people like Rafael Espinosa, 6'1", and Inoue at 5'5". I don't think he's catching that chin clean very often. So yeah. That being said, look, the monster does what he does. Consummate professional, generational talent. Top 3 in the world, whichever order you have it. Yeah, nothing else to say. It was a standing night at the office. Hopefully, he's back out in December in a slightly better fight. But also credit to Dehaney for at least making the fight entertaining, especially in the first half. And yeah, credit for even taking the fight, knowing what was about to happen inevitably. But yeah, shout out. That's sort of my thoughts on it, Tony.
Cool, yeah. That's pretty much it, folks. Let's see if there's any final comments that we need to address. I'd like to see a proposed fight between Inoue and Nakatani. Yep, the Japanese super fight. I'm sure the Japanese are definitely looking at lining that up at some point. I think that Inoue will fight. He's fought December. I think last 2 years he's fought in December between Christmas Day and New Year's Day, and then he's fought in 3 other years in December. So he is accustomed to fighting, having a fight in December. So it wouldn't surprise me, obviously, now that he hasn't had the hardest of fights. He has sufficient time to prepare for a December fight, which could be Nakatani, it could be MJ. So yeah, we look forward to seeing what happens there.
Tony, quick question. Have you spoken to KG this week?
I haven't, no.
Okay. All right, fine. Okay, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, there was an announcement to make, but there's a conversation that needs to have before we have the actual announcement. So probably next week, I believe we will have a show. I'm trying to think. There's York Hall on Friday, Sam Noakes. There's no real big card on. Maybe next week. If not next week, definitely the week after, because that will be sort of Canelo Belanga. None of us will be paying for that, but we will see at least the main event prior to jumping on the show. But yeah, all right, we'll save that announcement for then. But until that time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being in attendance. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Tony, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Pugilistboy, the Pugilistboy. And everywhere else, I am Pugilistboy. Yahoo, YouTube.
I was going to say Yahoo.
Yahoo.
You really are old.
Bro, leave me alone, man. What's wrong with you? Let me grow old gracefully. So yeah, YouTube and Twitter X, Pugilistboy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. There was a casual stream earlier on today. The next one will be Thursday. Hopefully, I will have a video out tomorrow. during the day. On Twitter X, you can find me at B_A_S_E, or just type in BaseDaKID. It usually does show up. TikTok, BaseDaKID.thc. I haven't posted anything on there in a month or so, maybe actually more than that. So we're gonna have to do that. Instagram is BaseDaKID as well, and so is Threads. But yeah, YouTube, that's where it's at. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. News to follow, and yeah, just thank you everyone who's been rocking with the breakdown, and we will see you, if not next week, the week after. We've got to sort that one out, but until then, peace
out, people.